Let's do it. Let's do it. Come on in for the third keynote. Let's do it. Who's got a cell phone in the house, okay? All right, we got cell phone. We're going to talk about mobile. I know that Europe really likes mobile. Everybody in Europe thinks, wow, we have 5-year lead on the U.S. And we're going to create lots of mobile companies and be the world center for mobile. And then along comes the iPhone and everything changes. Oops, sorry. Anyway, but mobile is still alive. Nokia is still in business. Good to hear that. Okay. So we're going to talk about mobile, and we're going to do this with Robert Rice, who's CEO of Neogens. Come on up, Robert.
I feel like I should spin around and walk back. It's my first time on a catwalk, so please, be nice. Okay, so my name's Robert Rice. I'm the CEO of Neogens, and I want to talk about the future of mobile. Before I get started, I want to make one little point. A few months ago, I was reading a blog by a venture capitalist who was talking about what he thought about the mobile industry, and he effectively said that mobile is dead. There's no more opportunity for any kind of new innovation or new applications or any real new opportunities, so it was time to move on to something else. Mobile's not really interesting anymore. And I think that that type of sentiment is wrong and is backwards and really misses out on the larger picture of what's going on in the technology industry and in the social and hardware and applications and content. So kind of what I want to do today is bring a lot of this together, talk a little bit about some of the convergence that's going on, and give you some kind of ideas or different perspectives on things, on where the industry as a whole can go and where other industries are going to have a very strong impact based on what happens in the mobile sector. Which is what this talk is about. The takeaway, I hope the takeaway for you guys is some ideas, some provocative thought, and maybe a lot of questions. I would feel that I had a successful day today if you leave with questions and start having discussions with each other and other people that you know, because I think the future is wide open, and it's up for us to grab a hold of and do something with. So let's start with the paradigm shift. Years ago, when you got a mobile phone, it was all about making phone calls, and it was really nice that you could put it in your hand and not have to plug it into your car or a wall socket somewhere. And then as time went by, we started to be able to do things like SMS and email on our mobile devices, which was great and exciting, and allowed us to reach out to each other in new and different ways and begin changing how we communicated. And then, of course, things evolved yet again with devices like the iPhone and other smart mobile devices. But there's been a very slight paradigm shift that's occurred where it's not about a device that makes phone calls that also lets me do all these other fun things. It's a device that does all of these other fun things that also lets me make a phone call. That's a very, very important thing that's happened. And so now, obviously the iPhones are out there, and there's a lot of mobile devices in the smart category. But what's coming next? How does that change how we do things and how our other industries are affected? How does it change our social relationships? How does that change business models in terms of how businesses and companies relate to users? How does mobile impact on that? It's not all about just making phone calls anymore. So let me kick back a little bit to the past. I like looking at science fiction and fantasy and TV, decades ago or years ago, to kind of see what they thought the future was going to bring. And of course, as you know, we still don't have our flying cars yet, and we don't have our moon bases yet, which is a little depressing. I was looking forward to being on the moon this year. Okay, so anyway, I pulled a couple of pictures here. One of them in the bottom left is of Dick Tracy. It's very old, and this was kind of one of the early, ideas or visions of having a mobile device on your wrist that had real-time radio and television, let you communicate with other people. And then on the right-hand side, there's two pictures from a show in the mid-late 70s called Space 1999. And they all had these little communicator things that clipped to their waist, and they could pick it up and click on it, and it would show them a little video picture of who they wanted to talk to. And it was also a device that controlled their environment around them. They could walk up to the door and click it, and the door would open up, or they could walk up to the bomb that was going to explode, and they would click it, and it would be diffused, or the aliens would come, and they would click it, and the problem would be kind of solved. It's kind of like an iPhone, actually, when you think about it. And then, of course, in the upper left is from another science fiction show called Earth Final Conflict, which was created by Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek. And they all had these really nifty little handheld devices that would stretch open with a kind of a transparent screen that would have a video feed of whoever it was they were talking to. But they could also use it like a mobile device, all kinds of little data visualizations and touch control or whatever. But this has been out for a while, so there's been a lot of people thinking about where the future's going to go. What are these really cool things we can do with mobile? But how do we get there? What are the next steps? So before I get back to the mobile part of this talk, let me talk a little bit more about what's called the Internet of Things, which I'm sure some of you heard from other speakers or on blogs or some of the futurists out there keep talking about this. So effectively, there's a little bit of movement right now to try to take everything around us in the world around us, whether it's this podium or the person sitting next to you or the chair or the different exhibits outside or your car or your bus passes or whatever, and try to make them smart or intelligent objects that know what they are. I know I'm a chair, I know I'm located over here, and I know I can handle one person sitting on top of me, and I know I match this other set of 3 or 4 chairs. So there's this movement to try to figure out, again, what's in the world around us, and kind of tag everything, whether it's using miniature RFID chips or some other type of method, and then use all of that to kind of build this really large database that we can tap into and gain more intelligence and more knowledge about the world around us, which is kind of nice if you're doing it on your PC. But if you take that into the mobile sector, it suddenly becomes a very, very powerful and incredibly neat little thing to kind of play with. It would be really nice for me to know exactly who's sitting in what chairs around here, and it'd be kind of cool for you guys to point your little mobile device at me and click and know that I also play saxophone or I really don't like sauerkraut. Not that that's important, but being able to access that type of information about the things around you and other people is coming. So the next step here is augmented reality. Has anybody here heard of augmented reality at all? Yeah. Just with the show of clap of hands, do you think it's exciting, or no? Yes, exciting. Okay. If you think it's kind of gimmicky, a little on the novelty side, not really important, give me some really loud boos. Okay, there's at least one intelligent person in here. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so augmented reality, as I've written up here, is a highly disruptive technology that has a vast amount of potential to radically change all kinds of things. But for every bit of potential it also has an equal risk of being a novelty that's kind of cool for 5 minutes, and it's ultimately a waste of time. I kind of prefer the more potential side of things, but we have to be realistic when we talk about future technologies. So if augmented reality is designed and implemented and open and useful and practical in all the right ways, and it's made accessible to a lot of people, and it's combined with the power of the next generation mobile devices, augmented reality is going to literally change pretty much everything that's out there, every sector, every industry, and every facet of life. So AR is effectively the blend of the real and of the virtual. And there's different implementations of this. On kind of a low level, you've got things that I would call directory AR, which tells you about where you are in relation to other points of interest or landmarks, and kind of what's nearby. Where's the nearest Starbucks or whatever. And then, of course, there's other implementations that go a little further. In a case like here, the guy's maybe looking through his mobile device and seeing information about the people around him. And then even further, we start getting into the realm of taking 3D objects and 3D media and placing that in the world around you and having it stay there and be persistent and be interactive and be shared. And that's kind of like a third, more advanced stage. So here's kind of 3 little quickies. In the upper left is what's called marker-based AR. You need to print out a pattern and kind of place it somewhere, and then a web camera or a mobile device camera sees the pattern and says, okay, I need to display this type of content, and I use the pattern as the method for tracking it. And this is pretty much a state-of-the-art. It's very common. This type of technology has been around for a decade or two. AR is not entirely new. And then the upper right is an example of what I mentioned as the directory type AR. It tells you information about your environment based on your GPS coordinate and accessing some type of of database that has information about the points of interest. And then at the bottom is a picture of just two people wearing sunglasses. That was a joke. Okay. So maybe a couple years in the future, 3 or 5 or 10 or whatever, the method of interacting with mobile, interacting with computers and ubiquitous computing and augmented reality is going to be through transparent lenses, wearable displays, lightweight, they'll look like sunglasses. And then at some point, even in the future beyond that, there'll be contact lenses, which I'm a little critical of. I think there's some problems there, but there's work going on in different research institutes or whatever to try to build this technology platform for the rest of us to have a lot of fun with. So it's coming. The question is when and how fast and whether it's going to be done the right way or not. So there's this bit of a convergence that's going on. Again, it's all being driven by mobile. Mobile is the big facilitating technology for all of these other things that are beginning to mature and come together now. And I like to point them out. It's social, it's virtual, it's the web, it's mobile. And then when you start throwing in a little bit of the augmented reality stuff, things get very interesting and very cool pretty fast. So what's the AR roadmap? Right now we've got a lot of the marker-based marketing. If you were to go to Google and search for augmented reality, you would get a whole slew of hits from a lot of major media companies like General Electric or Ford or Toyota or Lego. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And they use these printed markers so you can sit in front of your computer, hold it up to the little webcam monitor, and have a little bit of an experience. As things begin to progress a little bit, we're getting into more of the directory and distance AR. We know what's nearby, what's around me. There's a couple of companies out there now that have some really neat applications that'll run on the iPhone or the Android or whatever that enable this. And so the next step beyond that, and this is probably in the 6-month to maybe 12-month window, is making things near and interactive in 3D. So I'll be able to have a 3D virtual pink unicorn or whatever here on the table that you would each be able to see from your own different perspective and kind of interact with, or I could have my name floating over my head, that type of stuff. The next step beyond that, we start getting more into the functionality and the practical side of things with user interface, e-commerce. There's a number of different ways to tie those things into this, so it's not just about my pretty little pink unicorn, but it's more about there's this virtual thing here that has a correlation to a real-world object somewhere else, and has a real tangible value. And of course, again, as we progress, the next step is going to be ubiquitous, be all over the place, and then at the end of the day, it'll be immersive. And this is where we start getting into the glasses. Right now, experiencing AR is pretty much limited to sitting in front of a computer with a monitor and a keyboard, or looking through a mobile device, kind of like a magic lens, which is kind of cool. But at the end of the day, I really don't want to do this all day long because that makes my arms tired and I'm lazy. So when the glasses come out, we're at a point where we can get into gesture-based interfaces because we can track your hands, and then we don't have to worry about sitting in front of a monitor anymore. There's no more need for a keyboard. Any surface can become an interface effectively. As I said, things are going to get very interesting in a number of years. This particular slide is kind of where I view where we're at. When I get back to the VC guy I talked about earlier, who kind of felt mobile is dead, and the whole .com crash was terrible, and we really shouldn't bother with the internet anymore, and there's no new business models. I think that's all wrong. I think we've barely scratched the surface of what technology and media and internet and online and ubiquitous can do. I mean, every year our devices get smaller and faster and more powerful. And we're still experimenting with different business models and different ways to approach technology and handle things. There's a whole bright future in front of us. We just need to stop being depressed about the last 10 or 20 years and kind of get back to the business of doing cool and innovative things. And the first time somebody comes out there with a really cool new thing, that tends to inspire other people, and they start doing little things with it, and they play with it, and they mash it up, and that inspires the other people. So I think that it's within our ability to kick ourselves in the butts and kind of get back to developing cool things, because I would really like to have a vacation on the moon before I die, so please hurry up. So the big three, in terms of moving forward, everything you have to start thinking about your business and your technology and your customers in terms of content that's localized, that's contextual, and that's immersive. Now you can replace immersive with interactive because they're a little interchangeable, and interactive is easier, immersive is a little harder, but at the end of the day, immersion is going to be important. So localized. When you go to the internet right now, it's not about where you are. It doesn't matter that I'm here logging onto the internet. If I want to go to bestbuy.com or google.com, that's some ethereal thing off in the distance somewhere. But when we start taking in mobile and mixing that in with all of the other things I talked about, suddenly where I'm at is very important. It's very spatial oriented. So if I were to do a Google search for eDay, I don't want to know about what happened 3 or 4 years ago, or who owns it, or who's whatever. I want to know what's happening today. So we've got my date, we've got my location, which is here at this conference, and then we've got a database somewhere that says, okay, well during these dates, and this guy's the speaker, and he's the one who's asking the question. So what am I likely to be asking about? I'm likely to want to know, where is the place? I'm lost. I haven't gotten there yet. Or when exactly is it I'm speaking? Or who's speaking before me or after me? These types of things are relevant to me mostly because of the context of my question, which is based on the location that I'm at, the area and the situation that I'm in, or the people that are around me. It's the same thing with a wedding. If I'm at a wedding and I want to search for wedding, do I really want to know about bridal gowns in San Francisco? Or do I want to know about the wedding that I'm at, who the bride is, who the groom is, when's the reception afterwards? And these things can all be figured out based on, again, where am I and what's around me. So if the internet knows about, again, where I'm at because of my GPS, or it knows that this is a wedding because it was logged on somebody's Facebook somewhere that happens to be attending, or the caterer vans all have GPS, RFID things in it, or whatever. All this kind of comes together and lets us tap into that and do something interesting. Okay, so if AR is done and developed and deployed properly, I think it's going to cause a media revolution that will ultimately turn into a whole nother renaissance. Again, it's not just about pretty little unicorns up here, but how do I rethink about art or data visualization or even education? How would you as an educator change the way you teach somebody math or chemistry or electronics if you're able to create vivid and interactive, things in front of a child that they can experience and poke with their fingers? Thinking about that, it's just a whole nother. It's not about the chalkboard anymore. It's about trying to create engaging experiences. Think about art. Think about performance art. You can have a band up here on the stage playing some music and maybe some graphics in the background. But what if there's other elements that you can introduce that change based on tempo or a key signature or which vocalist is singing or how many people are in the audience or what kind of people are in the audience? So you can kind of combine all this together and create entirely new experiences based on getting all this technology if it's done right. So moving on a little quickly, I don't want you guys to fall asleep on me. I know you're probably getting hungry for lunch. I'm starved. So social relationships are going to be much more important and more relevant than they are even now. Customers, I guess we kind of view customers as credit card numbers. If I'm, say, Starbucks or something, I'm happy that you come in every day and you give me your money and you buy the same drink. But I don't really associate that data with you. As far as I'm concerned, you're a credit card number and you come back. But if we change that relationship and say, okay, well, we've got the mobile devices, and I know who you are, and I know where you are, and I know what you do all the time, then we get to the point where if you're a frequent buyer of Starbucks in, say, Raleigh, where I'm from, and I travel to New York one day and I walk by a Starbucks, my little mobile phone should blink and go, hey, Robert's here. He's a frequent buyer of Starbucks, so come on in. Let's give you a free coffee and ask you, how do you like New York so far? Are you able to find what you're looking for? We're thankful that you're a regular member, and we're happy you're here. What can we do for you? And that type of thing completely changes the whole dynamic of relationships between brands and companies and the end user and the consumer. It's not just about you hitting my credit card anymore. How do you go about establishing and building a new type of relationship with me to increase my brand loyalty, to increase the exposure of your brand, and to get me to go out and tell all my friends, hey, I was totally lost. I was screwed in New York City, and I walked by Starbucks. They invited me in. I got a free coffee out of it. They called the cab. They helped me get to the airport. It was awesome. I'm totally going to buy Starbucks stock right now. And that's kind of, I wish you'd buy my stock instead, but that's what we're shooting for. So again, there's the long tail relationship, and we're trying to get away from the desk. Mobile is certainly a facilitator for that. Business models. There's so many different new ways to engage or brand or monetize, but it's going to require a lot of thought and kind kind of a little bit of forward thinking and experimentation. There's no quick and easy bullet here. A lot of this is kind of making it up as you go and trying it out and seeing what happens. But there needs to be unified technologies. We can't have a situation where there's 55 different bits of hardware and 35 different browsers, and every time I walk 10 or 15 feet down the street, I get another pop-up in the corner of my eye that says, hey, there's a new mobile thing here or a new augmented reality thing here. Would you like to download our browser? That will kill this industry. So it needs to be open, it needs to be extensible, there has to be a good bit of unification. Now I'm trying to hurry up. Okay, so lots of channels for revenues, and these slides will all be available later, by the way. If you have any questions, you can feel free to tag me down. So virtual goods is a huge industry right now, and mobile and AR is going to take advantage of that. Microtransactions and mobile advertising is going to be huge. Data mining and business intelligence will take a few years to take off, but will ultimately be a very strong element and component that you can leverage for your own businesses. Premium content subscriptions is kind of arguable as to that business model. Data must be free. I don't like paying an hourly fee to access the internet on my PC, and I don't like having to do that on my mobile device. So the sooner we can kind of free all that up, I'll be a happy guy. Emerging markets. This stuff can be applied to effectively any market, any industry out there, and later on, if you feel like you can stump me with one that I can't think of an example for, track me down because I'd like to know. Blue sky is the future, which is effectively still a blank slate. Feel free to be creative and come up with your own predictions and challenge them and test them and talk to other people and test it out. But the nice thing here is that mobile and AR together and all of the other contextual locative stuff is so unknown and still it's like an undiscovered country. It's up to us to go out there and trailblaze it. All the things that we know about traditional media or Web 2.0 or the regular business models aren't necessarily going to be applicable for the future, so we have to think outside of the box. This is if we are successful, we get this, and if we're not, we get this. It's the right idea, but it's certainly the wrong implementation. This is my favorite slide. I love this one. Again, at the end of the day, who, what, where, when, why, and how. And I'd ask questions, but I think I'm out of time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I get to be the one that asks the questions.
All right.
Okay, so there's always this trade-off between the integrated experience that the iPhone offers and the mass market, because Apple is very much a premium pricing kind of expensive scenario.
Yes.
And then you got the mass market, and we were talking earlier about cell phones in Africa. Okay? And to me, Android is a great opportunity because it's open source, so no one can control it. But yet, Apple's shown that the App Store can be very profitable, right? So, how do you see that fitting into this futuristic stuff? You just said, well, we don't want to have all these different things popping up as I'm walking down the street, but that's the App Store. 50,000 apps on the App Store, right?
Yeah, no, I think that the whole industry is going to change as we go. I think early on, there's a necessity for some types of walled garden experiences or areas where there's closed systems, because we're simply in this mode of trying to figure out how it all works and kind of make an effort at it. But I think ultimately, and we have to think about this now, everything has to be interoperable, has to be open, has to be extensible, and there has to be again, like I said, it would be horrible if we got to the point where, imagine if every website you went to required a new browser. The internet would be so screwed, it wouldn't even be funny. But that's the sort of thing that we have to avoid with building this new type of technology. So early on, there may be some app stores, but ultimately, it'll be wide open.
Okay, so here's another thing I have about this augmented reality stuff. So, the scene is from Minority Report, where Tom Cruise is walking by an ad. It recognizes who he is, and then the ad is customized to him. What are the odds that only one person is walking in front of that ad? How's the ad supposed to know who it's? It's halfway through its thing, and then the beautiful woman comes by. Well, I'd rather do an ad for her than you, right? So isn't the reality of this one-to-one relationship of you to the ad, that's just not practical.
No, not at all. That's it depends on how you implement the technology. In that particular case, it was projection-based. So it was like a holographic projector built into the ground somewhere that projected that. with the AR that seems to be developing now, it's a lot about what's on your mobile device and what you see. So 10 of us can look at the exact same thing and get a completely
unique. But I've been thinking about these big video walls. If you've ever been to Tokyo, you're standing at the street corner, and there's 50,000 people viewing one screen, right?
Sure.
And so what does it mean to have the group to an ad, as opposed and a contextual ad versus individuals?
That's just as powerful. I mean, there's so many ways to spin this. I mean, from a group contextual thing, if you're looking at an audience of 50,000 people out, Times Square or whatever, it would be nice to know if the Shriners from, Ohio are all there, and that's really the target market you want to go after. So,
and just ignore the rest?
Sure, why not?
All right. Now, so I really like a lot of things you're saying, but I think the problem here is that often in technology, we're down here in the details, and we love to take that jump up to the reality, okay? And I'm all about like the baby steps, right? So in general, what we're talking about here is connecting the online world, let's call that cyberspace, to meat space, meat, Fleisch, like the real world where we're in, right? And to me, there's many, many things we can do as simple as understand the context you're talking about at a wedding, right? Where we don't need fancy 3D glasses.
Right.
We don't need gloves. We don't need all this fancy. We don't need to even call it a buzzword. It's just good software, smart software that understands. Connecting the cyberspace to the real space, that's the essence of all this stuff,
Yes.
right? So that's why I'm just not too into the buzzwords.
Oh, no. I can't stand the term augmented reality. It's been bothering
Well,
me
then stop
for
using
days. But no, you're right. So it's like if you step back from the pretty graphic stuff and start looking at the rest of the linking of cyber versus real, that's really where the real value and the real power is. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Now I had planned to do some sort of gimmick where my phone was ringing as I was on stage, and I interrupted us to answer the question. And I don't know what it's like in Europe, but in America, the big thing, every movie theater now has very creative trailers to explain to people you really have to turn off your phone during the movie, right? It seems kind of obvious. And now there's a new thing where please don't text during the movie, right? Because people are so often doing that. And so obviously this thing is pervasive into our lives now, and it's getting in the way of other norms.
Well, I think in a couple of years you'll need to have your mobile device on to experience the movie fully, and that's the fun stuff.
That's a good prediction. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for 3 keynotes this morning, and go off and have a good lunch. Come back. I'll see you later on this afternoon.